When you order a title report with us, it takes us 24 to 48 hours to get it to you. We're going to go through the abstract from the county records and interpret it for you. What's that? I'm going to go all the way through? All the way. Okay, we're going to go deep then. What was your name? Mark. Okay, good. I'm Doug. All right. At the first few pages are like, one thing you have to remember when you're looking at a title policy, or this is what we call a commitment. The commitment is saying if certain things happen throughout the transaction, we will issue a title insurance policy on this land. It is an insurance policy, like a auto insurance policy, a homeowner's insurance policy. It is an insurance policy, and it is regulated. We are regulated by the insurance division in the state. So it is an actual insurance policy. When you get your policy for your auto and home, it has the same schedules: Schedule A, Schedule B, Schedule B2. Some have Schedule C. General liability for commercial policies like this building has other schedules. On every title policy, insurance policy, you're generally covered, except for this reason, except for that reason, except for that reason. Years ago, when I sold commercial insurance to businesses, they would say, well, I'm covered. I'm covered. I'm good. And I said, yeah, but did you read the last 3 pages? Except for this reason, except for that reason, except for this reason, you're not covered. So it's the same on this insurance policy. We'll have exceptions that will say, if this is still there, we can't cover it. Okay. So start at the beginning. This is a powerful tool as a listing agent to have this in hand. So call us when you're getting ready to, if you want to list a home, call us, email us. We will do the title report for you. You take this with you to the listing. You're a step above all the other real estate agents. Other agents just show up. Please let me list your house. You show up and say, I've already done the research on your house. Here it is. And you've already done the research. You know the taxes. You know who the real owners are. Some owners are in an LLC or in a trust. And you can say, I see this is in Doug Roundy's trust. And they're like, oh yeah, Dad put it in a trust years ago, and we've just been living here. So, I can't sign on the listing. No, you're not the real owner. The trust is, or whoever's in charge of the trust, right? So you'll have all the background done, and you'll be a step ahead of all of the other listing agents. So the first part is just like any other insurance policy, goes through definitions. Shelby's going to scroll down here, goes through our commitment to issue the policy. Here's your definitions, just like any insurance policy. Make sure everybody's on the same pages. Limits of liability. This is all what we call the boilerplate stuff. Every insurance policy has this stuff at the beginning. You get to this page, Schedule A, this is where the meat and potatoes start. At the very top, you'll see Real Advantage title, issue office, our Orem office, loan ID number. If there's a loan involved with, we'll throw the loan ID in there. This is our commitment number. And this is what you want to, if you call us and say, hey, I have a question on this. And if you have the address or that commitment number, that way we can pull it up really quick. Okay. That's our file number. This commitment date is important to understand too. This says 7/29/22. When we issue title, we do research from the county records, and then we backdate it 2 weeks. That's because Utah County is a little slow on making sure things get recorded on time. So we can't give you.
Abstracted. Not recorded, abstracted.
Yeah, right. The county, when you go to record something in the county, it takes them a few weeks to get it on the abstract. So she's correcting my definition here. So for someone to look on the abstract for a certain property, it might have been recorded, but the county hasn't put it on their property yet, or reviewed it to make sure it was done right. Like the warranty deed was done wrong, or the deed of trust, something else. So they'll review it and take some, since they're so busy and we're a bigger county than Richfield or San Pete or some other place, they're really quick. So their commitment date will be closer to the actual date than ours in Utah County. Salt Lake County is the same way because they're big. So sometimes you'll get a lender that will say to you, hey, I need an updated PR commitment. Well, this was July 29th, so it's 30 days plus, right? Because we go back to 2 weeks. So that way you can know, oh, this is an old one, we need it updated. Or if you know that your client recently changed it from a trust to their personal name so they can be on the listing, you need an updated one, right? So the date is very important to understand. Okay, the first policy that we're going to issue is a homeowner's policy. As a listing agent, this is what you are going to represent, your seller is going to represent to the future buyer, is the homeowner's policy. They own the home, so that's why we call it the homeowner's policy.
Hunter has a question.
Why is it called an Alta? What does that even mean? 'Cause I see that everywhere.
American Land Title Association.
Oh.
It's,
Nothing to do with the ski resort. No, that's what I was taught, so no.
no, it's the basic form that all title insurance use.
Okay.
We all use the Alta policy, Alta form
The American Land Title.
association. Yeah,
And the homeowner's policy is only good on 1 to 4 family. When a person is buying it, not a company, not a trust, not an LLC. It's just an individual or multiple individuals, whatever. But in the purchase contract, on page 2 of your purchase contract, it says on page 2 of your purchase contract, it does say that the seller will provide the buyer the Alta homeowner's policy. So that is what is in the purchase contract. And when it's like a commercial deal, or let's say an LLC is purchasing it rather than individual, then we change that to a standard owner's policy. And that's what gets issued when it's that situation.
The seller's issuing that.
Because we have clients, actually a lot lately, that have asked about that homeowner's policy and why they have to pay for that. The sellers have to pay for that for the buyers. And I refer them back to the real estate purchase contract. And it said in the contract, it says that the seller is providing that to the buyer.
So yeah, they're insuring.
They're ensuring that
there's a clean title.
yes, they're providing that and we insure it.
So what happens if there isn't a clean title? Do they still issue like a homeowner's policy? Or do you have to get that like if there's a lien? Yeah, if there's a lien or something on it, do you have to get that cleared first
Yes.
before you can issue it?
Yes. So there's a couple of situations, like a prior deed of trust that from a prior owner that was never released or reconveyed.
Yeah.
Amber, my assistant, will go through and get proof of payoff and then get that released from our policy so that we can issue a clean title, because we cannot insure it unless it's clean.
right.
When you're referring to the string, I don't know how many people are watching online, but say the number because they can't see you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Number 2, the Alta homeowner's policy. Yeah, number 2. So as a seller, you're saying what Hunter was saying. You're saying, I'm listing my house, I'm offering this house onto the market, and I'm showing you what is going to be, how your title is going to be looking once you buy it. So that's what the homeowner's policy does.
So if we were to, I love the idea of taking the PR to the listing appointment. Would we just tell you guys to run it off of what we like?
Yeah,
like,
because
how-
all we need is an address.
Yeah, just an address, and maybe if we need to tell you a purchase price too.
Nope.
No.
No, if you do a listing PR, these things are just listed, but like Mitchell and Emily Smith were the buyers, so that would be blank.
Right.
This would be blank, 2A would be blank, 2B would be blank. So all of this would be blank, but down here, it would show, number 4 would show who your seller is.
Great.
Yeah, or who the county showing owns it, listed as owning it. Now, we'll put in TBDs in there.
Right.
So they know that, right? Right. Okay, so quick example, real quick, especially if others are watching. We had, I think I've told some of you this was before. We had a client, they got divorced. She moved out, he owed her 10 grand. he paid her 4 of it. And they were both moved. 3 years later, the next door neighbor wanted to buy the house with a handshake. He sold the house cash, $230,000. 3 years later, that neighbor wanted to sell it. Well, they had not issued any title insurance through that transaction. So now the neighbor, we pull title report and it shows that there's this $10,000 lien still from the ex-wife of the previous owner. We dig deeper, find out that he still owes her $6,000, but they claim he paid it, but there's no evidence of it. Well, title insurance through a transaction would have made sure that's all cleared up. So now this new owner who wants to sell it, technically, if nobody's paid that $6,000 lien, he has to pay it. So that's why title insurance is so important.
So it doesn't carry over.
Right. We make sure it's done right or the transaction won't happen. Right.
Who prevents it from happening? I mean, obviously, if they just did it, if he again just did it, he just can't get title insurance on it.
Yeah.
He could go and sell it, but then he opens himself up to life, like the next owner, again,
Yeah.
has to be title as well.
So let's say the seller on that property wanted to sell it and we couldn't get proof that it had been paid or get it released. That seller would have paid the ex-wife of the previous seller $6,000 just to get that removed and be able to issue clear title to the new buyer.
Was she pressing the matter, or did she had just forgotten about it, but you guys still couldn't issue the policy because there wasn't,
We ended up getting it cleared. We did.
Yeah, we did.
even without paying her?
Right.
No. Well, we got proof that she had been paid in full.
Yeah.
But you're right. That's a good question.
And it blows my mind that even if they did it, just a handshake deal, they still would use a title company.
I know.
And that's the thing, that's my other thing, it's like, how, is there, like, we were just talking, I haven't had a single deal where there's been an issue on title. I'm just curious, how often do you guys run into it? Is it more
You
than
might want to
routine?
repeat the questions for your online viewers.
Oh, yeah, if you
Oh.
don't mind, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead and say it.
So, yeah.
Yeah, so my question was, Travis and I were just talking and, blows my mind that someone wouldn't just use a title company, even if they're just doing, a closed door transaction. But my question is how frequent do issues like this actually come up? Because neither of us have ever had any issue. Like I've honestly just said, hey, Burgundy's the PR report good? Yep. Okay, great. And that's it. Like I've never had, so I'm just curious, how frequent do you guys see issues?
I would say 1 in 5 to 1 in 10 has something on it that has to be cleared. Now, whether or not we can get it cleared or not, there's a lot more or a lot less of that. We just have to get in touch with the previous title company. In that situation, we had to track down her, so it takes a lot more back work to get it cleared. But I've been doing this for 20 years and I think, we can always get it to the point where we can issue clear title.
She struggled with one a few months ago that the ex-wife and ex-husband didn't even want to talk to each other.
Yeah.
And so it was like trying to get everything resolved. And it was they'd been divorced a few years and so it drug on for a while.
Okay, last question before you keep going, because I feel like we're just holding you guys up.
Yeah.
But what is the most common hold up on like a title report? Like, is it a contractor lien? What do you guys see the most common issue on?
Okay.
Okay, let me teach you about contractors liens first. A lot of people, they're called mechanics liens, right? A plumber comes in, contractor, roofer, and the people don't pay it. So the contractor has to put a mechanics lien against a property. And it's registered in the county as a mechanics lien. He has 6 months to turn that into a lawsuit or it falls off. Yeah, so mechanics liens those are the rules of the state and the county. The state law says that, okay? Other states and counties aren't that way. They put a lien against it and it's there till they refinance or sell it. So mechanics liens are one thing, but if they're over 6 months old and they haven't turned it into a lawsuit, and then that lawsuit will attach also to the property, then they fall away. But there are federal tax liens, bankruptcies, child support,
liens.
felonies with a dollar amount will attach. State tax liens.
Even like
what's the word I'm looking for, where they're owed a certain debt to a creditor or a collection.
Collections will show
Collection,
up.
if it has got to a certain point, they start the lawsuit and then that'll attach to the property.
So it's like collections and like taxes, probably the biggest thing that you guys see for the most common.
Yes.
Taxes are a big one. We just pulled one the other day and they owed 6,000 for 1 year to the Utah State Tax Commission. Then the next year was 10 grand. So Amber, our assistant, reached out and said, we need information. We need full name, because sometimes the middle initial will differentiate between names, especially common names like John Smith, date of birth and last four of social. And she reached out to the clients and they said, no, those are ours. Don't even worry about it. They're ours. But they're selling and the proceeds of their sale are going to pay those off.
So you can do that. That was gonna be my question.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it'll just be like, you have a mortgage payoff, you have a state tax lien payoff, you have a federal tax lien payoff. So all of this just gets paid directly through closing and we send in the checks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Last question.
Okay, what if you guys miss something, mess up, it goes through and later comes back to bite someone in the butt? Who pays for that?
Good question. So $6,000, let's say the 6,000, we missed a $6,000 state tax lien. Let's just say that, right? The next guy goes to pull a title report 2 years later to sell it and it pops up because it's against the property, right? Who pays it?
The.
Burgundy earns more, so she pays.
That is when you start a lien against the title insurance policy or a claim. Sorry, a claim against the title insurance policy. Now,
Yep.
because in Utah, we do split closings. Like in this situation, I close the buyers, but somebody else closed the sellers. So that title insurance claim actually needs to be placed against the homeowner's policy. So the buyer, I don't remember who the sellers closed with, but the buyer would start the claim with the seller's title company. Because so whoever does that homeowner's policy or closes the seller, that's who that claim would be started with.
Well, my one question was just, and I want to let you guys keep going. So just real quick, is it common? I know that here it's pretty typical to close at different title offices. In other states, is it common to close at the same title office?
Yes.
And then, because my other question, it just seems like that would speed up a lot of the process. Is that more of just like a due diligence things people want someone else's eyes on it? Like, why do we typically close at 2 different title offices?
I'll tell you why. Because the federal law is that nobody can entice you when it comes to financing, insurance, policies. Nobody can entice you to or coerce you to buy their policy. So you as a seller, you can say, I want to use Real Advantage. The buyer can come in and say, I like Real Advantage. I'll use them too. Or the buyer says, no, I go with so-and-so title company. It's my title policy that I'm paying for. And realtors, builders, they cannot influence technically. Now they still do it somewhat, but you cannot influence, especially entice them. Like if you go with Doug Roundy, I'll buy you a Ferrari. That's completely out of the.
Most common, like example of that is builders, right? So you like their builders, title company, you technically don't have.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, in our listing, we write like buyer will get it, like it's our preferred title companies, Bill Advantage, buyer will get a discount.
Yep.
Not obligated. But I still just, it's just interesting because I've heard in other states that use
Yeah.
the same title. but
Right.
it's interesting that-
And I agree with you. It would make things so much more smoothly throughout the entire process if everyone just closed at the same title company. But, you know, you have a relationship with Real Advantage and the other agent has a relationship with blankety blank title company. So they want to,
Well, but so as far as issuing policies, doesn't the seller pay for the homeowner's policy for the buyer?
Yes.
So then
Yes.
what does the buyer's title company do for them?
they pay for the policy for their lender. So we can only do a split closing when there is a lender involved. That's why when you have a cash buyer, it has to close at the same title company because there's only been one policy issued and the seller is paying for that.
Seller picks up. Oh, right, okay,
Yep.
okay, and then if there's a lender involved,
Yep,
Well, I know that cash has to be the same.
Yep.
place,
Why?
I didn't know why.
yep. And that's why, because we're issuing a policy to the buyer's lender.
Lender.
Yep.
And it's a mortgage requirement. The lender's requiring
Yeah.
a lender's policy. So that's why they have to have that. The lender's saying, we want a policy. We don't care what the other title company did, the seller did. We want a policy for our loan amount. So that's required. But that's a good
What?
question, Hunter, because our title department, and years ago when I was in title, I caught things that the other title company didn't catch. And so it's actually an advantage in a lot of ways for everybody that we have two different title companies researching the same property. Because we'll catch stuff. One time it was clear back in 1997 or 77. And the other title company went back to 2000, was like, ah, we're good. Well, we went deeper and we're like, whoa, there was something way back then. So those things are important. All right. So the seller offers a homeowner's policy to the buyer. The buyer's lender says, we want a lender's policy to cover our loan amount. Okay, it's always on the loan amount. Our rate sheet is priced according to purchase price, sales price, and loan amount. That's where all our rates are. And those rates are controlled, or we have regulated. We have to show what our rates are going to be to the title division. And we can't go, well, this is a really hard one, so we're going to increase this $300. We can't do that. It's a set price, and that's the way it is. Okay. You okay with that? Okay. Number 3 tells us who that we're in a fee simple state. Okay. Number 4 says that who the actual title is vested in. That's who the owner is. Okay. That's very important when you're listing it, because if you show up and say, hey, John, I want to list your house. And he's like, yeah. And he signs everything. And then you pull the title report and John Senior is actually the owner. Your listings, it's null and void, right? So this is important. This is why we ask you, when you're getting ready to do a listing, send it over to us. We'll get you all this info. The worst thing is you showing up and looking like a fool and going, oh, and the dad's like, yeah, it's in a trust, dude. You don't even know that? You're the agent. You're trying to list my house and you don't even know it's in a trust. So it's important. All right, go ahead. The legal description of the property will always be in Exhibit A, which is at the very end of our policy, our commitment, very end. Okay, here's Schedule B is going to start in. These are requirements. So when we do research on the policy, on the property, it's good. We're going to have requirements here. So if we come across 3 deeds of trust, 3 mortgages, the requirement for us to issue policy will be this deed of trust has to be paid off. This federal tax lien has to be paid off. We'll list what has to happen for that policy to come into effect. So you have clear title.
So that's where it will identify if there's any issues.
Yes.
So when I go to look at the PR report and I can know if that has nothing, then we're good to go.
Yeah, well, right. This looks like, if there's no deed of trust here, looks like they own it free and clear, right? But it'll also be in the next section too. You'll be able to see who actually is who was the first, at least, lien holder on that.
One
Yeah.
of the things that we run into a lot is one of the requirements is that we need LLC. Let's say the house is vested in an LLC or trust. We need that paperwork in order for us to insure the property. That's one of the requirements. So when we reach out to your clients, that's why, is because we have to have it in order to insure it.
It's the articles of incorporation. So if John Smith is the only person that can sign for that LLC, we need to know that. Because if the ex-wife says, oh, I can sign, and she signs everything, we say, okay, great. When we don't verify it, we have to verify that to make sure it's transferring property. Some people get a little picky, like, oh, I don't want you to show me, I don't want to show you my articles of corporation. It's like, well, it's not like it's your underwear. Everybody knows about it. So.
What, the underwear?
All right, let's go down, Shelby. All All right, here's part two, Schedule B, part two. Here start the exceptions. You're completely covered except for these things, right? So these are, these first 8 are all the same. They're all the same, okay? Unpatented mining claims, we don't insure title with mining mineral rights, okay? There's water rights in here. Normal boundary lines and encroachments, that's part of the plat map that was part of the, when they started building the house. All those things are basic things. We can't insure against those things because they're already part of the land, okay? Service, installation, maintenance, construction for sewer, water, electric, garbage. We're not going to insure against that stuff, okay? Defects, liens, claims, okay? That's why this says right here, 1 through 8 will be omitted because they're normal things that come with every policy. You won't see that on your policy once it's issued after the close, after the transaction's done. So this is a commitment that we're going through right now. Okay, here's the meat and potatoes. Number 9, tell you the taxes. And it'll show the tax ID number. Okay, it'll show the last year's taxes. Now we're coming up here in September. We'll start getting proposed or assessed taxes for the next year. We'll start throwing that on there just in October because they're due in November. Okay. Set boundaries in Pleasant Grove and tax district 70. So this tells you how your taxes are levied. Okay. Subject to notes, restriction, easements shown on the plat map. So when the builder started saying, I'm going to develop these 20 acres, he had an engineer do a plat map, submitted that to the county. They approved it. This is the number. This is the approval number right here. And they recorded it downtown in Provo. Okay, any permanent easements by the county recorder, common areas, all those things, those are things that you can't come back to us and say, you didn't tell us that there was a gas line through here. We're already accepting out of it. We're saying there might be a gas line there, might be a sewer line in your property. We're not going to insure against that stuff. But we are telling you that it's probably there, right? Any continuing assessment or liens levied by the homeowners, the HOA, okay? We're telling you there's an HOA. We can see according to the abstract, there's an HOA involved in this property, okay? And now you know there's an HOA, there's probably going to be what else? HOA fees, special assessments, special
Investment, transfer.
reinvestment transfer fee,
So that's why you identify
Who's gonna pay those?
right? And if you're ahead of the game and you get that PR from us and you say, hey, Doug, I need to know what that transfer fee is. We work with almost all of them. And so Amber can look it up and go, oh, you know what? It's $300. So you show up and you say, hey, are you aware that there's a $300 transfer fee? And they're like, no, when we bought 20 years ago, there was no transfer fee. Well, now there is. We had one, but it wasn't our title company, but it was, the transfer fee was $5,000. Reinvestment fee was $5,000 and nobody caught it.
Oh.
Neither realtor, well, the one realtor said, hey, I think, but he didn't put his foot down. And then both title companies, a split closing. The buyer moves in within a month. Who contacts that new buyer? HOA says, hey, we didn't receive a check from either title company. So you owe us $5,000 for reinvestment fee. He calls up the realtors and they're like, oh, well. He calls the title companies. They're like, oh, no. So he paid it just because he didn't want to fight.
Who would be,
Isn't that an insurance
uh,
line?
I mean, it's
Yeah.
kind of on his plate, right? I mean, I don't know what the contract looks like.
Wouldn't
but-
that be time?
Technically, there are 4 entities he could sue. Both realtors and both title companies, right?
What did the contract say?
Well,
Say
the-
the buyers pay the HOA or-
Well, that's the thing. He didn't even know about it. The realtors didn't disclose it. The title companies didn't disclose it. So he didn't even know about it. That's the issue. Okay?
So had the realtor disclose it, had the real estate agent disclosed that and he had ignored it, then that real estate agent would be protected from a lawsuit. Well,
Disclosure is number one.
Right, it disclosed, so that takes care of that. Would he then still be able to sue the title company? Even though he knew about it?
Not sue, just start a claim.
Claim on the policy.
Okay.
That's the same thing as suing. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, sue for a claim.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yes, you're correct. That is correct. The $5,000, one of those title companies should have stood up and said, oh, put a claim on the policy. We will, or we'll just pay it out of our own pocket. Either way.
Yeah, they should have issued a policy about it being taken care of.
Right.
Like,
Because technically so there are certain things that no matter what happens, they're automatic liens. They're automatic liens. State tax liens, federal tax liens, they're automatic. As soon, that day that it's issued, it's automatic. If you own property, it's automatically liened against your property. They don't have to go to the county and say, please put this against the property. It's automatic. Okay? HOA is one of them also. They are technically quasi first lien position always.
oh, they're brutal. And you may not notice the answer, but the question is, can you contest that HOA? Because I lost, like, because the HOA fee was so high.
Well, that's what the buyer said. The buyer said, if I would have known this is a $5,000 reinvestment fee, I would not have bought this home. Why? Because when he goes to sell it, there's another issue, a big issue. I mean, that's probably bigger than his origination fee, right? So there's another big issue he has to tackle down the road. So he says, I wouldn't have bought this house if I would have known that. So yes,
But
There's nothing you can do once you're under contract, like that buyer would have to get on the board of the HOA and fight it that way, like, we don't need to do this. So once you're under contract or once you have a listing, like, there's really nothing that can be done to have it so that the buyer or seller doesn't pay it.
right.
Uh-huh.
But it's
at
just a
that
matter of negotiation though. It's
Yeah.
part of the equation to get the home. So yes,
Yeah, I've seen so many HOAs from $100 a month to $8,000,
Yeah.
for the transfer.
Yeah.
And I just.
Yeah, the newest thing is 25% of, or 0.25% of the sales price. That is what a lot of HOAs are doing right now, especially brand new ones with brand new construction. And it turns out to be, thousands of dollars for these buyers to pay. Now, in a real estate purchase contract, again, on page 2, there's that change of ownership paragraph that if you're representing a seller, you want to make sure that either says buyer will pay those change of ownership fees or split equally so that your seller doesn't pay the entire change of ownership fee so that they're not stuck paying that reinvestment fee.
Yeah.
If you're on a buyer side, you want to check it so that the seller pays that and your buyers don't have to. That's different in a new construction purchase contract for sure. But in the Utah real estate purchase contract, you definitely want to check that page 2.
yeah. Good point. Okay. Any water rights? We do not issue insurance with water rights. We can help make sure water rights are transferred properly because the state actually has a division that controls those or follows them, regulates them. But we don't insure. That'll never be a part of your insurance policy. So, but in your contract, that's valuable when you're especially doing rural land, that's part of your contract. So we all know it's part of your contract, but don't tell your borrowers and sellers that, oh, it's part of your policy, because water rights are not. Okay, similar to mineral rights. Here we go, mineral rights, outstanding gas, oil, mineral rights, those are not part of the policy. Covenants, conditions, and restrictions, gateway condominiums. Ding, your listing agent, oh yeah, it's a condo. Okay, yeah, you knew that. But you wanted to CC&R, sometimes they want to see a copy of them. Give us a call. Hey Doug, as I'm going to this listing, I want to hand them a copy of the CC&Rs. Oh yeah, no problem. Because then as a seller, you can do what? Offer it to the buyer and say, here's the CC&Rs, read them. Most people don't read them, but they'll get in there and they'll say, oh my gosh, the CC&R says I cannot have a yellow door. That's my wife's favorite color. we were gonna paint the door yellow, but the CCNRs won't let us. We're not buying that house. So there are particulars in CCNRs that you might go, who would have thought of that? Okay, you can't own a spotted dog, whatever. Okay, you can see this, the HOA has amended a few different times. This is just a red flag. I've written up title policies where there are 40, 20, 30, 40, 50 amendments through the years. What does that tell you about the HOA board? Hypersensitive, crazy, they will be in your business. So as a buyer, you look at that and you go, okay, as a realtor representing your buyer, you want to say, okay, you see these 50 amendments since 2004? That means I had one, it was like every 6 months, they were something new. It's either HOA people fighting with each other or they're just crazy.
Executive orders.
Terms and conditions of a notice of reinvestment fee covenant. We talked about that, right? State law says that this has to be the HOA, if they want a reinvestment fee, it has to be recorded in the county. Or if they have one and it's not recorded, they cannot charge it. Okay, so we want to disclose that to you, because if we don't disclose this to you and they do have a reinvestment fee, we haven't done our part to disclose it, therefore we can be liable for it. Okay, the policy can. Okay, let's scroll down. Okay, here we go. Now we know there's a deed of trust, right? So we know that's gonna have to be paid through the transaction. Okay. If there are two deeds of trust, that means they have first and a second, or one wasn't paid off properly, right? Then we do our research on the names of everybody involved. Okay, Emily Mitchell, buyers and sellers. We will check them, all of them, for bankruptcies, tax liens, everything else. So will the other title company. They'll check them also. Okay, and we check them when we issue the commitment, and we check those again on the day of funding. Because you'd be surprised how many people declare bankruptcy thinking, oh, we're almost done with our house. Boom. And the day before it closes, all of a sudden bankruptcy shows up. Or a tax lien. All of a sudden there's a $10,000 tax lien that shows up yesterday, but we're funding it today. Boing. Guys, we can't close it until this is cleared up. So
That's actually probably something a lot of agents don't know, is before we record and disperse on a file, we always do what's called a date down. So they take from that effective date, which on this one was July 29th, when we originally did the title report, and they go from there forward and make sure that nothing new has been recorded on that property, as well as in the court system, in the bankruptcy system. So they check all of the systems again and make sure nothing new has been recorded. And once we get the clear, then we record.
And our company, unlike most title companies, we check for SCRs on every file, right? SCRs, you know what that is? SCRs is the state registry for construction. So when a builder or even a subcontractor comes into your home and he does a major remodel on your house, there's a state registry. He can show how much you owe him. So if you don't pay, it's not only a lien or a mechanic's lien, but the state registry shows that that property owes this plumber $30,000. So that's something that we have to check. Most title companies don't check that except for new construction, but we check it on every file.
Okay, so that's just new construction that you're gonna see that on? Or
Usually.
sometimes it'll happen.
Usually,
Okay, so so that would be the result of a mechanic's lien, wouldn't it?
No, not necessarily. The state construction registry is a totally different filing system for the state of Utah, where instead of doing a mechanic's lien recorded on the property, they go to the
division.
consumer division or whatever it's called,
Yeah.
and actually file
It's basically saying we've done this much work on this property And until we get paid in full, we're going to keep it with the state registry.
Exactly. So it doesn't necessarily have a dollar amount on there. It just says, we did work on this property and we haven't been paid yet. And then we, as the title company, have to go in and say, okay, I see you filed something on the state construction registry. How much are you owed and what's it going to take to get this released?
Do they do that so they don't have to file a lien and then within 6 months?
Yes.
You have a lawsuit?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
And also the reason that registry came around was because general contractors were not paying their subs. So a sub can go up there and say, hey, we worked for this property under this general contractor had us do this $30,000 in drywall. That's why it came around, because the subs weren't getting paid and the generals were walking away with all the profit. So they issued this, they started this state construction registry where if you're a sub, you can register it and hopefully still get paid instead of just getting aced out.
Got it.
Okay. So that's one thing that we do that most other title companies do not do. So this is a commitment. And with this commitment, it will elevate you above all the rest by having this in your hand when you go do a listing. And go ahead.
How long does say I schedule a listing? How long could I anticipate you do this information?
Yeah, 24 hours usually.
24 to 48 hours is
Yeah.
our usual turnaround time.
But
If you're doing a listing, I should probably say this.
If you're doing a listing tomorrow, because you just made the appointment today, when you email us or call us, just say, I have an appointment tomorrow. I need this done by then. And we'll have it in your hands.
Yeah.
So,
Call it a rush. Say, hey, Doug, can we rush this? Burgundy, can we rush this?
yep,
I got to be there tomorrow at noon.
yep.
So we can prioritize our orders and say, yeah, let's get this one out because it's a rush. Yeah.
Okay, Trent's question was, how much does it cost to do this? We do not charge for a listing PR because we make the money when we issue the policy, when you do get a buyer, right?
That's what I was figuring, but how do you ensure that the seller is actually going
Sell,
to sell and to work with you?
you.
Because if I go to,
Here, I'll take this. So if I go to a client of mine and I say, well, I'd like to list your property. And I'm going through the motions of hopefully getting a yes. I already have this, if I'm doing this right, I already have this BR report from you, right?
Mhm.
So there's no guarantee you're going to get paid at all.
Right.
So you're doing it, you're working like us, you're hoping. We
Because
work on a hope and a prayer.
Well, and here's the other thing is because we know we'll get, it might not be that property that the seller chooses you, but we're going to get the next one from you, or we hope to get the next one from you. So we're not going to charge you for this because we know eventually we'll get one from, or the next one from you.
Yeah. Other realtors have asked us, because you'll see at the very top of the commitment, there's a $200 cancellation fee.
Yeah.
And that's in there because the state says we cannot work for free.
Mhm.
So we have to put that in there. But we're so busy working, we really don't collect on that much. Ever.
Yeah, ever.
where did
Okay.
you say that?
At the top of the commitment, there's a cancellation fee.
Yeah, it was like $250, I think.
Yeah. So don't worry about that. We're not gonna, was it Mark, right? If I came to Mark and said, you know what, you ordered 10 policies this last month and you didn't close one, you owe me $2,000.
Mhm.
Mark's gonna go, I'm never using Doug again.
Yeah. Exactly. Mhm.
So, but that's because the state says we can't work for free.
So where does it say it?
Go down, there's a cancellation fee somewhere in the jargon.
Yeah, I think it's on the.
Let's keep going. Arbitration. I haven't seen it. The realtors pointed out to me. I don't notice it when I go through it.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, don't worry about it. It's in there somewhere. Keep going down.
It might be. I can't remember where it is either.
Maybe it's a figment of your imagination.
No, it's in there for sure. I know. but
It's
I
in there
can't
somewhere,
remember.
but
No, if you guys don't even know where it is.
I
it doesn't
That's how
exist.
often- I've been doing this 22 years. That's how often I've been.
Yeah.
I've had to like invoice
Oh, I remember when I first started doing real estate, it was like $75. And then it went to 100, and then I saw 150, and now ours says 200 somewhere, so.
Yeah.
Inflation.
What's your phone number? I haven't seen it.
Oh, I have a card right here. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, are we done with Zoom?
Say your, wait, don't give your name and phone number for the people listening.
Oh.
So they can
Okay.
Write it down.
It's Burgundy Low at Real Advantage Title.
You're Burgundy?
And I am Doug
Oh.
Roundy. Well, today identifies Burgundy. Doug Roundy at Real Advantage Title. And you want to need our office number?
Go for it.
I don't have my glasses.
385-223-8753. We are right here in the KW building in Suite 102. Doug is giving his card to Mark. His email address is dougr@realadvantageutah.com. I would tell you mine, but it's just
And-
long and has to be spelled out.
Burgundy L. BERGUNDYL at realadvantageutah.com. I speak Spanish. Lacey,
Our business developer, does American Sign Language.
and she's very good at it. So if you have any deaf clients, she can help out with that. And she's willing to even help with writing the contract so they understand everything.
Yeah,
So-
we have a very unique team in our office, and we are more than happy to talk to you at any point, answer questions, anything we can to help in any transaction. We're there for you.
I'll take this. And this is not a paid plug for those listening. I use these guys for every transaction I can possibly throw their way. Burgundy, if she's never screwed up on a deal. Did I just jinx it?
Better not have. I don't
And-
plan on screwing up on any deals.
And we don't have to close them all right here in the office. If there are certain needs that we have to close in certain homes. We had an invalid wife a few months ago, had to go down to Payson to sign down there. So we're mobile. We can help out wherever you need. And we have offices all through the state also, Salt Lake, Ogden, South Valley, and we just opened in St. George. So.
Is that open now?
What?
St. George is open now.
It is open and furnished. It does not have any employees yet.
It's not fully staffed
But it
yet.
can be used for closings. If you want me to drive down there and do a closing, that's totally fine.
Yeah, weekend closing in St. George would be really nice,
All I'm saying.
especially with a golf trip or something, you know?
So that's it? Is your presentation?
This is it. This is our, thank you.
Austin, if you're still there, thanks for joining us.
And you
No?
guys.
I am. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you, Doug.
Thanks, Austin.
Okay, thank you. That was good.
Thank you. Did you learn anything